Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of This Week in the World of Football. This is episode number 246 for May 31st, 2022. I'm your host, Randy Snow. Today we're going to talk about the CFL and their players' union coming to an agreement on a new collective bargaining agreement, and two teams have qualified for the USFL playoffs. In this week's history lesson, we tell the story of Dick Plasman, the last player not to wear a helmet in an NFL game. But I'm not here by myself. As usual, across the table from me, as always, is my son, Adam.
Again, not across the table, because if you can't hear it out there, listeners, he is still under the weather, still testing positive for COVID. So we are, again, doing our show slightly differently. We're not across from each other.
I'm calling it the COVID configuration.
Yeah, so everything's been wiped down, I hope. And,
yes, I did. I wiped it down.
And we're 6 feet apart. We are not looking at each other, really. We have our masks on.
Bonus.
He is isolating himself, other than this podcast, pretty much.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to stay away from everybody and everything as much as I can.
That, and I can't let my seniority get lost to him.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here still. And yeah, I've been tested negative, so
that's good.
So far, what we're doing is right. Yes. So.
Yeah, you told your work that you were exposed to somebody with COVID, and you were hoping for a few days off, and they basically said, if you're not having any symptoms, get your butt into work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm double vaxxed, and I got to go get my booster and everything.
Yeah.
Or the next booster at some point. I'm eligible to get that now, so I got to plan on that. But hey, we're here to talk some football. Let's keep our mind off of the COVID for now. But so week 2 of COVID Randy. So he still sounds awful.
Yeah, well, maybe I sound better, Sometimes
no,
when
you don't.
Under the weather, you got a deeper voice, and it just sounds better and sexier.
It just doesn't help the editing process of the audio sometimes. You got to speak up still.
All right. We come to you each week from the World of Football Man Cave, located right here in the center of the football world, Kalamazoo, Michigan. We're here to promote the game of football in all its many forms, past, present, and future. Our goal is to inform and entertain our listeners with the glorious buffet that is the world of football, while keeping a close eye on the rich history of the game. Thanks for checking out our podcast. We'd love to get your feedback on one of our many platforms: Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, where we post the entire audio portion of this show, as well as other selected videos. So let's begin today's show with Adam and the World of Football scoreboard.
That's right. We're entering Week 7 of the USFL season, and we're pretty close to that thing getting wrapped up. Playoffs are right around the corner.
That's
and
right.
Speaking of the playoffs, on Saturday, the New Jersey Generals clinched a playoff spot by defeating the Tampa Bay Bandits 20-13. And then we also had a second game Saturday night. This one, the New Orleans Breakers defeated the Michigan Panthers 31-27, a very close affair that came down to the end of the game. Yep. So the Breakers get another win, but a big note for us, we were watching the game.
Yeah, we were.
The Panthers kicker, Paul Murphy, hit a 60-yard field goal at the end of the first half. Wow.
That would have been good for another 5, 6, 7 yards.
It probably could have.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it cleared the crossbar.
It was a heck of a kick. I'll give him that. It was
distance there.
Of all the positions in the USFL that I think will easily transition to maybe an NFL, kicker's one of them. We've seen some bad kicking this year, but this Paul Murphy guy, he's been looking pretty decent. He had a 53-yarder a couple weeks ago or last week,
okay.
And then this week a 60-yarder.
I was going to say, I hadn't really heard of him until this particular kick.
It sounds like maybe he didn't have the greatest start to the season, but he has been looking really good the last couple of weeks. So right now, I'd say he's probably the most ready guy out of the USFL to go to the NFL.
Yeah, there you go.
A kicker. All right, on Sunday, we had a second playoff spot clinch. This was when the Birmingham Stallions defeated the Pittsburgh Maulers 26-16. So the Stallions remain undefeated. They have now officially beat every single team in the league, and with that, clinch that playoff spot. And then finally, second game on Sunday, the Philadelphia Stars defeated the Houston Gamblers 35-24. So we take a look at those standings real quick. And as we know, going into the playoffs, the top 2 teams in each division or conference, however you want to call them, will make it to the USFL playoffs. And as we mentioned, the New Jersey Generals at 6-1 have clinched a spot already. Sitting behind them, the Philadelphia Stars at 4-3, and I would assume could clinch a spot with another victory and a Michigan Panthers and Pittsburgh Maulers loss, because the Panthers and Maulers both sit at 1-6. On the south side, The Birmingham Stallions at 7-0, we just mentioned, have that playoff spot clinched. And right behind them at 5-2, the New Orleans Breakers, the 3-4 Tampa Bay Bandits, and then the 1-6 Houston Gamblers. So, can the Breakers, pull away and probably with another victory and a loss to the Tampa Bay losing again? Because I'm not sure what the schedule looks like next week.
Yeah.
New Orleans could get that other spot there.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear in the North who the two best teams are. But the South, it could be Tampa Bay, it could be New Orleans fighting for that second spot. Who knows?
But with 3 weeks left, the Panthers and Maulers are technically not mathematically eliminated yet. Maybe we'll get some sort of miracle comeback and the Stars could fall apart, but who knows?
Yeah, you only have to squeak into the playoffs in order to make a run.
Yep, we've seen that before.
Yep.
All right, and then over in the Indoor Football League, it is Week 12, and we had a slew of games this past weekend. On Friday, the Iowa Barnstormers squeaked by the Green Bay Blizzard 34-24. Saturday, the Massachusetts Pirates also squeaking out a win over the Bismarck Bucks 28-25. How about that for the defending champs?
There's another squeaker.
Yep. The Sioux Falls Storm got into a shootout with the Quad City Steamwheelers, beating Quad City 62-55. Wow. The Duke City Gladiators and San Diego Strike Force also got into a bit of a arms race, if you will. 54-49, the Gladiators taking that one.
Yep.
The Frisco Fighters over the Vegas Nighthawks 42-21, doubling up on them.
Yep.
In a battle of Arizona, it was the Northern Arizona Wranglers defeating the Tucson Sugar Skulls in a very, very close game, 34-32. And finally, their other Arizona rival, the Arizona Rattlers, defeated the Bay Area Panthers 38-23.
A lot of close games this week.
Very close games this week.
That Sioux Falls Storm and Quad City Steamwheelers game, 62-55. Man, that must have been fun to be at.
I'm sure between that one and then even the Gladiator Strike Force, that game was within 5 points. So
yep.
A lot of good games and a couple of squeakers. We had a couple games within 3 points of each other. So I say that's a very good week for the Indoor Football League. And then we jump over to their standings real quick. The Frisco Fighters in the East lead that division with an 8-2 record, followed by the defending champion Massachusetts Pirates at 7-3. The Iowa Barnstormers sit at 6-4. The Quad City Steamwheelers at 6-5. At 5-5, the Sioux Falls Storm. The 4-7 Green Bay Blizzard take the next spot as the Bismarck Bucks at 3-8 sit in the lowly bottom spot of the East. In the West, it's the Northern Arizona Wranglers with an 8-2 record, somehow surprisingly topping over the Arizona Rattlers, who are also at 8-2.
No, I could have put either one of them.
I guess you could.
Well, I just figured I'd put Northern Arizona because Arizona's been on top for so long.
All right, well, through fault of our own, apparently, the Wranglers are sitting atop the Rattlers, but both 8-2, that's crazy. Both
right.
Arizona teams there, and then the third Arizona team is also in a tie for second place with the Duke City Gladiators at 5-5. So the Sugar Skulls and Gladiators at 5-5. The Vegas Nighthawks at 4-7, San Diego Strike Force at 2-8, and the Bay Area Panthers rounding out the league with a 1-9 record. And with that, we throw it over to a couple other indoor leagues with Randy.
Yeah, the Champions Indoor Football, it was supposed to be Week 12 for them, and I don't have a clue what happened.
I was even looking just a little bit ago. I couldn't find anything either.
Because I checked. I mean, they're always a day or so late. They always put their scores up at the last minute.
And they had a game last night, didn't they? So
They did have a game last night, and according to their schedule, they had 2 games last night, but that doesn't make any sense. But, there's no scores to report, so I'm not going to belabor this too much. Champions Indoor Football Week 12, I don't know what happened. I do know that the Omaha Beef and the Rapid City Marshals were on a bye this week, but I did see an article a few hours ago that it was put out by the league office. Champions Indoor Football has taken control of the Billings Outlaws and the Rapid City Marshals and are seeking new ownership groups for both of those teams. So I don't know if that has anything to do with what's going on out there. This is unfortunately an all too
common occurrence
in these indoor leagues. Not just the Indoor Football League, but all of them. Sometimes they get in some bad ownership. They want a team in a city so bad they're willing to take a chance on somebody that presents themselves really well, but they just don't have the backing. So right now the league has taken over 2 of the franchises, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. So maybe next week we'll have some scores to report from CIF.
Maybe. If it weren't for the Omaha Beef, I would label this league a rinky-dink league.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about when we cover the rinky-dink leagues on this podcast. I think we should just do away with them, and I'm sorry. I think it's all about time we start throwing the CIF out
the
with the
Omaha Beef
bathwater.
And the Sioux City Bandits, they've both been around
and the
for
Sioux
a long
City
time.
Bandits. My apologies. They're another one. Sioux City.
They've been around for a while. They know what it takes, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but
it just seems like it should be. I don't care how small your league is. If you can't run it where you can even put scores out for people who even want to have a general interest in your league, that's really sad, and I think they should not be followed.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry. That's just that comes with the territory. Like if you ran a league, Randy, and you got your scores out on time, I think it'd be worthy to talk about. But if you can't, that shows me how you're being run just from the top. I mean, you should be on top of your league website, should you not? So that's just bad business there, and I think I vote with my seniority, which should give me even more power, that we just stop talking about the CIF.
Well, we'll see what happens next week. If they are not going to be consistent, which they weren't in the beginning, and then they did get consistent for a while, and now all of a sudden this week, no scores again. So I don't know, but I say we'll give them next week. We'll see what happens. If not, we may drop them from our weekly standings, and we might just pick them up in the playoffs again if they actually are pretty good about releasing their
I'm
scores
officially done with you, CIF. Unless you send me a T-shirt, then I'll reconsider.
Okay, so the other league that I want to talk about is the National Arena League, and they did have some games this weekend on Saturday. They had 3 games on Saturday. It was the Orlando Predators over the San Antonio Gunslingers, 63-52. The Jacksonville Sharks over the Carolina Cobras, 59-57 in a very close game, and that was the first loss of the season for the Carolina Cobras. They had been undefeated up till that point. And also on Saturday, the Albany Empire defeated the Columbus Lions, 39-31. So a quick look at the standings has the now not winless or not undefeated team anymore. The Carolina Cobras at 5-1. Albany Empire at 4-1, Columbus Lions at 2-2, Orlando Predators at 2-3, Jacksonville Sharks at 2-4, and the lowly San Antonio Gunslingers at 0-4 on the season. And that's it for this week's World of Football scoreboard. And before we get into the regular news this week, it's always a good episode of this podcast when I have to start out with a correction from something I said last week.
Of course, it's always you. Notice how Adam never has to make a correction, everybody.
Yeah.
Just saying, the most senior person on this podcast has not had to do that.
Give it a rest. Last week, during the Gino Cappelletti obituary, I said that he was one of just 3 men to play every regular season game during the 10 years of the AFL, and I also said that the other two players were Otto Graham and George Blanda. I was incorrect. I had it written down correctly, but I misspoke. When I said Otto Graham, I should have said Jim Otto. So it was Jim Otto, George Blanda, and Gino Cappelletti were the 3 that played every game of the 10-year season of the original AFL. I want to thank our newest listener, Greg Norman, for pointing that out, and hope he continues to listen and keep me on my toes. Normally, you correct me when stuff like that. Because normally you read along. When I'm reading stuff, you'll stick with me and you'll look at it. And if I do something wrong, you love to point it out.
I do.
That I
As the most senior member of this show, I love pointing that out.
But
and that I'm the most senior member of this show.
You were looking at your phone for something at that time.
I think, I don't know if I was anticipating some breaking news or maybe if I was kind of like on the tails of something that I thought might be a story. That's what I generally do. When you get these long-winded things and I don't have to read anything, that's generally what I'm doing for this show.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Greg Norman. I appreciate that. And so let's go on with this.
Welcome to the
show.
podcast, Greg.
Yeah, point out a mistake. Get on the podcast. Get mentioned on the podcast.
Make sure they're always a Randy mistake. Adam has. I've made it this far without being corrected. So.
Yeah, right. There had to be something somewhere.
We haven't had to make a correction on the show yet for me. So.
All right. In NFL news, kind of NFL news. 1982 Heisman winner, USFL star, and former NFL running back Herschel Walker, who's actually 60 years old now, if you can believe that, has won a Republican runoff election in Georgia. He's now going to face an incumbent Democrat, Raphael Warnock, this fall in hopes of getting a seat in the U.S. Senate in Washington. How about that? He's supported by former President Trump, who was the owner of the USFL's New Jersey Generals team that Walker played for from 1983 to 85. I think Trump actually bought the team in 84, so he was the owner for 2 seasons. But that's the connection he has with Herschel Walker. I know we don't talk politics on this show, but this was more of a football story than anything. So 2 people with ties back to the original USFL.
Sounds like more of a political story than a football story.
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention it because I thought it was pretty interesting that Herschel Walker...
Whether you're pushing your Republican agenda on me?
No. I love Herschel Walker. And
I thought you were going to say, I love being a Republican.
No, I love Herschel Walker. I loved him in the USFL back in the 80s, and he's kind of been out of sight, out of mind for a long time. And now all of a sudden, here he is running for a Senate seat, and he's one election away from getting a seat in the Senate in Washington D.C. So I just think that's amazing. And when I saw the fact that he's 60 years old, that just threw me for a loop. I mean, I always think of him as this guy right out of college, but man, that's a long time ago. Long time ago for all of us. Another story that came out this past week, quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who's now 34 years old, has had a tryout with the Las Vegas Raiders. I was reading all these articles where they were saying nothing but good things about his arm strength and how good he looked and how much the team liked him, but he's not been signed yet by anybody. I mean, by the Raiders or another team. So I don't know if he's actually going to get signed. He's been out of the league since 2017, so I don't know. I would have thought they would have signed him by now if they were going to do that. What do you think?
It sounds partially like a publicity thing, especially for the Raiders organization. Look, I like Colin Kaepernick, but when he played, I did think he was a flash-in-the-pan quarterback. I didn't think he was going to be a big, sustainable franchise guy. Yeah, he took the Niners to a Super Bowl, but I just, you get all the protesting and stuff out of the way. Think what you will. I mean, everybody's got their opinion on that matter. It doesn't bug me. You got something on your face. That's what I keep pointing at you. You've been blowing your nose over there, and you got stuff on your. You're missing it still.
Oh, would you continue?
I'm sorry. It's been bugging me. I looked over there, and I could see it from this distance. Okay, I think he got it. But, yeah, I'm lost my train of thought because I'm watching Randy struggle over here, wiping.
I'm over here trying to blow my nose under a mask and get a drink of water while you're talking.
And I'm looking over and I just see something on your face. I'm like, I don't know if it's a boogie or if it's a.
Oh, come on.
Or if it's a fuzzy. I don't know what it is. I'm sitting a great deal from you.
You said you weren't looking at me over there. No.
Well, now I'm looking. And
don't
now
look
I
at
can't
me
stop
and just
looking.
keep talking.
It's a train wreck over there. What are you doing? I think it's on your shirt now. Oh, boy. What an amusing thing happening over here. Anyway, what was I talking about? Colin Kaepernick. All right, look. I mean, if they haven't signed him by now, I don't know. He's a 34-year-old quarterback who hasn't played in not even that, 4 or 5 seasons now. It's been
since
a while.
2017.
It has been a while, and boy, I have nothing against Cap. I like what he represents, off the field. But in terms of just playing football, which is what I think I care about, when we do this podcast, we try to keep the politics and stuff out.
Right.
So in terms of playing football, I would consider this a risky move. I mean, you brought him in, you did your workout, and if you honestly can think, distractions aside, if you want a good player on your football team, you're going to sign him, regardless of what distractions might come with it. Look what happened to the Browns and Deshaun Watson. They were like, well, we don't care about the distractions because he's a good quarterback. All right, well, you will have to deal with those other stuff after the fact. And with Kaepernick, I think it's the same thing. But is it his talent is good enough to get him to sign, and then we'll worry about the distraction stuff later? Or is it we still don't think he's talented enough, and we don't want the headache, so it's kind of we did our due diligence, and we're done. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen there. It could have just all been a publicity thing.
It could have been, and that's what I hate about it. I don't want these things to happen because, it'll look good. Like, hey, we were the team that gave him a shot.
Right.
Okay, what?
But if you don't sign him, what difference does it make? Then
maybe, but then if you're just signing him just to sign him, and it's not because he can actually add something to your team, then I don't think that's right either. So there's a lot of gray area here, and I wish there's a little more transparency. Part of me is I'm glad he got the shot. I don't like if they're giving him the shot if it's for the bad reasons.
Yeah, and this was almost, like I said, almost a week ago, I think. And he got all this publicity right off the bat, for the next day or so. That's all anybody was talking about. And there has been nothing for the last 4 or 5 days on him signing, yes or no.
Right.
So yeah, personally, I just don't think it's going to happen. But, yeah, I could be wrong.
The timing is weird, too. Okay, you're working him out now instead of... Shouldn't you, if you were a team who knew you're going to need a quarterback or a backup, wouldn't in the pre-draft process, wouldn't you go, all right, well, let's look at Cap, give him a workout before the draft, see if we like what we see, and we can have him as a backup for this year, and we won't have to spend a draft pick on a 3rd or 4th round quarterback, to fill on a backup role. So I don't know. I don't really know. The Raiders as an organization has always kind of been sketchy to me, so we'll see.
And it was pointed out today that 100 days from today is going to be the start of the NFL regular season on September 8th.
That means 100 days from today.
Bills and the
Rams. I will have some time off. I will be out camping.
Oh, that's right.
My annual trip that hasn't happened for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, it'll be nice to get back. You bought tickets last year, and then they canceled.
They rolled over to this year, yeah, because they canceled it again last year.
Yeah, they canceled at the last minute. You were all set to go, and you had your tickets.
I had my tickets, and they canceled it like a month before.
Yeah.
So I did something else, but hopefully this year everything works out.
Okay. All right, moving on to some CFL news. The players finally ratify a new collective bargaining agreement, and preseason games are now fully underway, and the regular season begins in just 9 days.
Yeah, we didn't bring up the CFL scores in the scoreboard section, which you might have now in retrospect with the CIF crap in the bed.
I'm not going to do preseason, so we'll have CFL scores to replace the CIF in about 2 weeks or 9 days. So yeah, we'll have scores from the CFL real soon. Some of the highlights of the new collective bargaining agreement. The ratio of American and Canadian players will remain unchanged this year, but in 2023, 2 veteran American players will be allowed to rotate with Canadian starters for up to 49% of the snaps. I didn't know they actually kept snap count on how many American players, how many Canadian players were getting in playing time. I mean, I knew they had a ratio of, you can have so many American players on your team, but the rest have to be Canadian players. But I didn't know about the snap count kind of thing. The league has an option to increase the number of veteran American players who can rotate with Canadian players from 2 to 3 players in 2024. And I thought this was an interesting thing. The 2 teams with the most number of snaps played by Canadians in a season will be allowed an additional second-round pick in the CFL draft. How about that? That's interesting.
It's such a weird setup. I mean, I love the CFL, and I get you want to promote the Canadian and the Canadian Football League.
It's their league.
It's just, I don't know, it's really odd that they got to jump through these kind of hoops, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I try not to dig into the down in the weeds on too many of these things. I'm just glad they've got a collective bargaining agreement. But there were a few things that I found in an article that I thought were kind of interesting. The last item here is the CFL's new collective bargaining agreement is for 7 years in length, but the players have an option to opt out after the 5th year because it coincides with the expiration of the league's broadcasting deal with TSN. So they could say, well, if we don't have a broadcast agreement, we're going to forego those last 2 years, and we're going to, we want a new collective bargaining agreement and get it all
done at the same time, which makes
start
sense.
Over again. So those are just a few of the highlights of the collective bargaining agreement. But like I said, I don't really study these things. I don't get too involved in all the
the nuances like that. Yeah.
I'm just glad they got it done. The Board of Governors ratified the deal just a few hours ago. I think I saw that just a little while ago. So it's all done. It's all signed, sealed, and delivered. And we've got CFL football coming on, and that's all I care about.
Let our talks about what CFL game we're going to commence.
Yeah, we had that discussion yesterday. Let's see. Lastly, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers players received their championship rings for last year's Grey Cup victory. You saw the video? Yeah,
it's great. I've seen a lot of stuff, and the detail on the ring is really cool. They even acknowledge like a group of fans. There's this picture I remember seeing for a long time of some Winnipeg fans, cheering, and they included those fans on the ring, which is pretty neat. I even saw apparently the lady that's on the championship ring on Twitter. She got enough retweets or something that it popped up on my feed where she circled herself on the ring.
Yep,
and
this is me.
So that's got to be a cool feeling. And I see that you got here that fans can order replica rings for about $50.
Yep,
that's kind of cool.
Yep, and you can get a nice display box to go along with that for $100.
Heck yeah! If I was a Winnipeg fan, I mean, shit, I didn't even think about getting one, and I'm not a Winnipeg fan.
$50 is nothing for a replica.
It'd be cool to have a replica Grey Cup ring. Are you kidding me?
Team? Oh, like we wouldn't get a Lions replica.
I'm gonna get a replica of everything. I'm gonna commission a full Lombardi trophy. I'm gonna get a NFC Championship trophy, Super Bowl ring, jersey, like the whole team's, all their jerseys. I'm gonna have replicas of that. Like,
yeah,
we ever win a Super Bowl, I mean,
that would be
broke.
Awesome.
I'm going broke.
Yep. Okay. Arena Football TV on YouTube. I did not see a new game posted this week, but it's still a great site. If you haven't seen it, go check out Arena Football TV on YouTube. Check out some of the games, some of the highlights. They've got hundreds of games. Over 500 games, I think they have.
Probably more than that by now.
Many Grand Rapids Rampage games. So
a lot of great classic games. Like, shoot, you want to see the highest scoring game in arena football history? Go watch.
Yep.
The New York Dragons put up 99 points in a game one time
against Carolina Cobras.
You want to watch some? There's a lot of overtime thrillers, a lot of classic playoff and championship games.
A lot of the Arena Bowls.
A lot of the Arena Bowl games. So, nothing short. You'd be surprised at some of the names you might even hear watching one of those broadcasts, whether it be on the field, doing the play-by-play, or even, sideline reporters. You never know who you're going to come across. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Jay Gruden and, Eli Gold in the booth.
Mike and Mike did some games.
Mike Adamley was on some games. A lot of ESPN. Kirk Herbstreit, I think.
Kirk did one that we talked about not that long ago. Yep. So you could find all this stuff out there, guys. You can see some Kurt Warner classics.
Yep.
So, do yourself a favor. This is a league that we have loved and have missed so much over the last few years.
Hoping they'll bring it back someday.
And as much as we love football and some of these other leagues that are currently playing, it's just not the same.
No.
The quality, the prestige is just not there.
A lot of the teams that came from the Arena Football League are out in some of these other leagues now. The Albany Empire, the Carolina Cobras, Jacksonville
Orlando
Sharks, Green Bay Blizzard. They all have ties.
They're all scattered. They're like a bunch of children that just got scattered from their original family and just can't get back together for Christmas yet. It's really sad. So, it breaks my heart every time I read these scores or see these scores, and I have to see the Jacksonville Sharks in one league, and I have to see the Green Bay Blizzard and Quad City Steamwheelers in another league.
Iowa
Barnstormers, and it's just, it hurts. It hurts so much.
All right, today's birthday, May 31st, quarterback Joe Namath turns 79 today. You remember he played his college football.
Is that why you're wearing pantyhose in honor of him today?
No. Are
you just wearing pantyhose?
Got something to do with varicose veins. He played his college football at Alabama and was the first overall pick in the 1965 AFL draft by the New York Jets. He was also the 12th overall pick in the 1965 NFL draft by the St. Louis Cardinals. He wound up signing with the Jets. I think it was a record contract at the time, $40,000.
Could you imagine that, though, getting drafted by two different teams and then having to pick?
$400,000. I can't remember.
Could you imagine that, though?
Pittance compared to what they're making today.
True, money-wise. But I'm just talking about like having that option, though. Back in the day when there were two leagues that were fighting over you. Yep. Like nowadays, you don't really get that much of a say in where you get drafted. Yeah. But, could you imagine if we had, say, the USFL was bigger and about the NFL side still competing, and it was, are you going to the USFL or are you going to the NFL? Yeah. Who are you picking?
Who's going to put up the most money?
Who's going to put up the most money? Or what team, which league is set up better for your success? Yep. It's crazy. Yeah. And to think back then that, that was a thing they'd have to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah, that went on for several years. That's why the two leagues merged, the AFL and the NFL, because they couldn't afford to outbid each other.
Shoot, even before the NFL, we had what? Wasn't there the other football league that was competing with the NFL?
The AAFC?
Yeah.
I don't. Well, yeah, I think they were competing for some players, but it wasn't on the scale of the.
Of course, not the same
AFL.
Scale, but still, there's consideration. I remember us talking about people being drafted by both leagues or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always it's always been there, and it's never really worked. It's great for the fans and great for the players, but overall, it wasn't good for the leagues.
There you go. I just came up with another history lesson for you. Put it on the docket. The Sophie's Choice. Players that had to decide between two different leagues when they were drafted. There you go. I did it for you. That's what happens when you have the seniority on this podcast.
Yeah, this is a bad running.
And it's going to get run into the ground till I finally get a day off on this podcast. I can't even catch COVID to get out of this.
I offered to bring in your brother and let him sit there and work with me for a week.
What did he say?
He
turned you down, didn't he?
He didn't turn me down. He
didn't
said,
turn me down.
Whatever.
You know why he didn't turn me down? Because I got seniority.
Yeah, all right, so Namath winds up signing with the Jets, and he played with the New York Jets from 1965 to 1976, winning, of course, Super Bowl III in his famous prediction. Many people don't remember that he spent his last season, 1977, playing for the Los Angeles Rams.
It's just one of those weird footnotes, like
Yeah.
a lot of other quarterbacks over the years, like
Yeah,
Joe Montana with the Chiefs,
Yep,
with
I put
Brett
up some
Favre with
pictures
the
one time
Jets and Vikings.
several big name players that ended their careers in different towns.
Yeah.
Johnny Unitas with the San Diego Chargers his
Yeah.
last year. Wow. But
Again, another history lesson you could do. Famous players that ended their careers in places you didn't expect.
Go ahead and write that up.
I
And
did a history lesson.
Joe
One's
Namath
enough.
wound up getting selected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1985. Okay, so we only have one obituary this week, and this just happened yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, and I guess this happened at like 2 o'clock in the morning after midnight, so very sad story. Jeff Gladney, a cornerback in the NFL for only one season, has died as a result of a car accident at the age of 25. Gladney played college football at TCU and was selected with the 31st overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft by the Minnesota Vikings. He was released by the Vikings in August of 2021. He then signed with the Arizona Cardinals this past March after being found not guilty of felony assault on his former girlfriend. Police said Gladney was speeding on a highway near Dallas when he clipped another car, causing his vehicle to overturn, killing himself, and a female passenger.
It's
That's
tragic.
A very sad story.
Man, just another young player, only a year under his belt.
Yep. Everything ahead of him, and then this happens. So very, very sorry to hear that. All right, let's go on to this week's history lesson, unless you have run across anything in the last few minutes.
Nope, no breaking news, no nothing. I still have more seniority than you on the podcast, so we're good to go.
Okay, well, thanks to Adam, we're now going to move on to this week's history lesson. And this week we're talking about Dick Plasman, the last player not to wear a helmet in an NFL game. In the early days of football, players did not wear helmets, or much else in the way of padding either. Most college football players in the late 1800s and early 1900s simply let their hair grow long for football season as a way to cushion their heads against the rough play of the game. Leather helmets were a part of NFL uniforms in the 1930s, but they were not made mandatory in the NFL until 1943. End and tackle Dick Plasman holds the distinction as being the last player in the NFL to play without a helmet. Plasman played college football at Vanderbilt and was selected in the third round of the 1937 NFL Draft by the Chicago Bears. He played for the Bears from 1937 to 1941, then went off to serve in the Army Air Corps during World War II. He returned to the Bears for a few games in 1944, when he was on furlough from the military. In 1946, he signed with the crosstown rival Chicago Cardinals, where he played his final 2 seasons in 1946 and 1947. Plasman was the kind of guy who did not like hats of any kind, especially football helmets. On November 6, 1938, during a home game against the Green Bay Packers, Plasman was in the south end zone diving for a pass in an effort to score a touchdown. Instead, he ran head first into the Wrigley Field wall. In those days, the cement wall was not padded and was located about 2 feet inside the end zone. Plasman knocked himself out cold and suffered a nasty cut across his forehead. He was carried off the field and taken to the locker room, where he regained consciousness and asked, "Did we score?" He was then taken to the hospital, where they discovered he had 3 fractured ribs, a fractured arm, and a broken wrist. In an ironic twist of fate, Plasman ended up marrying a nurse that he met while he was recovering in the hospital. Over his 8-year NFL career, Plasman won 3 NFL titles, 2 with the Bears in 1940 and 1941, and 1 with the Cardinals in 1947. The last game he played in without a helmet was the 1941 NFL Championship game. When he returned briefly to the Bears in 1944, Plasman was forced to wear a helmet because the NFL had made them mandatory the year before. After his playing career was over, Plasman went on to be an assistant coach for 10 seasons between 1947 and 1961 with 3 NFL teams: the Chicago Cardinals, the Green Bay Packers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. He didn't even like wearing a hat on the sidelines, which led to him once getting frostbite on one of his ears. Plasman died in 1981 at the age of 67. While it is unthinkable today that anyone would ever play in a football game without wearing a helmet, there was a time when it was a common practice. But that all changed in 1943, much to the dismay of one NFL player by the name of Dick Plasman.
You know, it's about 11 years ago this weekend, because we just had Memorial Day, that I can attest to that helmets are very important to be worn, regardless what you're doing. Especially when I got into an accident 11 years ago this past weekend, kissing a guardrail with the back of my head while riding a bicycle and having to get 6 staples in the back of my head. So yeah, wear your helmet, everybody, regardless of what sport or activity it is you're doing. Yeah. And if you're Randy, maybe while you're mowing the lawn or riding a horse. I don't know.
It could be. All right. Upcoming events calendar. Thursday, June 9th, the CFL regular season begins with a game between the Montreal Alouettes and the Calgary Stampeders. Sunday, July 3rd, the USFL championship game in Canton, Ohio. Will we be there? Won't we be there?
I think we will.
I think we will, too. And
better get those tickets now.
Yeah, I might have to. I don't know if it'll be a sellout, but I think they'll have a pretty decent crowd there for that. Thursday, August 4th, the Pro Football Hall of Fame game in Canton. A month after the USFL Championship game, you're going to get to see the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Las Vegas Raiders. Will Colin Kaepernick be on the team by then?
Well,
Who knows? We shall see. And then 100 days from today, Thursday, September 8th, the NFL regular season begins with a game between the Buffalo Bills traveling out to Los Angeles to play the Rams.
The defending Super Bowl champions with the greatest quarterback of all time, Matthew James Stafford.
No, what did we...
I don't even know if that's his middle name.
Our official title for him now is...
The GOAT?
Super Bowl freaking champion.
Oh, there we go. Super Bowl freaking champion, Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford.
And you got to say it with a New York accent. Matt Stafford.
No.
That's a terrible accent.
Yeah.
Never doing that again. But, hey, we love Matthew Stafford here.
Well, we sure do. We're so happy he won a Super Bowl.
Yes, we are.
And we're hoping that he can win another one. It's pretty hard to do.
Hard to do. I mean, I'll be pulling for him, but, of course, Lions come first.
Yep, they sure do. All right. Anything else? One last chance.
Nope. I got baseball score that just popped up because the Tigers game just went final.
Yeah, this ain't This Week in Baseball.
Oh, that'll be on April 1st. I'm telling you, on April 1st, we have to just pull the wool out, the rug out from everybody and just do like This Week in the World of Hockey or This Week in the World of Baseball. This week in the world of fencing, I don't know.
I don't think we've ever done a show on April 1st.
We have. It's never lined up. I've always looked at the calendar and gone, please let us have a show on April 1st so that we could have an April Fool's show where we can just get ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And it never happens.
Yeah. Well, maybe next year.
Nope, it's on a Monday. Wait, on 2024, it's on a Monday. Darn it. So unless we start moving the podcast day around.
Yeah, that would
Darn
do that.
it.
All right. Well, that's all the time we've got for this week. If you learned something during this podcast about the incredible amount of diversity that exists in the world of football, then we've done our job. Visit our website at theworldoffootball.com for news, links, upcoming events, videos, and more. Our email address is info@theworldoffootball.com.
You can like The World of Football on Facebook at TWOF Kalamazoo. You can follow us on Twitter. The address is also at TWOF Kalamazoo. New episodes of this very podcast are posted on Tuesdays and are available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is The World of Football Kalamazoo when you do the search. If you could go subscribe, rate, review, let us know what you think. Any feedback is good feedback. We're trying to, we don't do a whole lot with the video side of things yet. We're still kind of toying with what to do. Mm-hmm. Things might ramp up back with the NFL season. We do our picks videos, and
you can go there and point out my mistakes.
Yep. But we're trying to do some other fun stuff. Hopefully here in the coming months. We got some video ideas that we're going to try and experiment with.
Yeah, as soon as I'm out of quarantine,
we'll be hitting the graves. Yeah, we're going to go grave hunting apparently. So be on the lookout for those. We'll definitely keep you all posted on that. Let us know what you think, and please come be a part of the football conversation.
And remember, folks, some people may love football more than we do, but nobody, and I mean nobody, loves more football than the two of us. Until next time, I'm Randy Snow.
And I can't believe we're doing this show in under 45 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, if I hit the button now, we'll be under 40 minutes. So, anything else?
No, I'm ready to go take a nap.
All right, everybody. Well, I guess we'll stop it before the 40-minute mark. Have a good one.
See you all next week.